Welcome, welcome, everybody. You are in ZoomCast, Integrate to Upgrade ZoomCast. This is our version of a podcast that's live, and we're bringing in different experts on the different topics that we're sharing in our online coaching program that Megan and I host called Integrate to Upgrade. Is where we support women on a journey of self-awareness, self-inquiry, self-knowledge to upgrade different areas of their life. So in June, we're talking all about nutrition and we're bringing in our friends Danielle Hamilton, who's going to talk about blood sugar balance and what she talks and teaches about nutrition. We also invited our friend Nicole. Hi, Nicole. Rafit Beauty in on Instagram. And Megan and I are also going to share with you our take on nutrition. This has become one of those vast subjects that's kind of confusing for a lot of people. And so we aim to either get a little more clear today or maybe even confuse you a little more how we were confused in our school in our nutrition program. And so thank you so much for being here. We see so many beautiful faces and friends, some people that maybe we don't know yet. Welcome, Rosie, and let's get it started. Megan, you want to say anything?
Yes, thank you everyone who's joining us tonight. Nutrition is so near and dear to my heart. I'm such a foodie, and I'll talk a little bit about my story later, but I've just totally evolved to eating like food is like it's pleasure and it's very fun for me, and it's taken me a long time to get to this place, but I wanted just to touch just a little bit about Integrate to Upgrade and how we came to this program. And the Zoomcast, a little background about the Zoomcast. So Barbara and I have created a program based on 12 pillars that represents all of our lives and where are we upgrading in these areas. And so we've been on a journey so far for the first half of the year. And this is a program that it's a year mentorship program, but you can join at any month and then your year starts from that month going forward. And so we've started with mindset in January, relationships in February, moved into career in March, finances in April. We just finished self-care in May, and now we're on to nutrition. And so to finish out the rest of the year, Barbie has to always help me at the end of the year, the second half of the year. But in August, we have play. Okay,
Let me
September.
unmute myself. Sorry. We've got play, we've got green living, we've got personal development, community, spirituality.
Yep. So we give attention to each of these pillars and we have a month focus. So when we created the program last year, we ran it for 3 seasons. We ran it spring, summer, fall, and it was an 8-week course. But we have 12 pillars. So we condensed a few together and we put a lot of our heart and our soul into this program. And it's been a combination of what Barbara and I have both learned in our health coaching program, the Institute of Integrative Nutrition, coupled with our experience of being yoga teachers. And my journey in the health and wellness space was all physical, personal training, culinary, nutrition. And what we've learned in our health coaching program with our own nutrition, our own style of living our life according to these pillars, and we put our own spin on it. And this is what we bring forward, and we're guiding women through this upgrade, a year-long upgrade together. And so within our program, we would have our weekly coaching calls. And on the off weeks when we didn't have the program going, we missed it. And we were like, oh, we missed connecting with all the women. And so we started what's called a Zoomcast, which is kind of podcast style with the topic. And we love to invite special guests within our community, our expert teachers that we know, that we surround ourselves with. And it's a really beautiful thing because within all of the 12 pillars that we do have so many special guests that are experts in that pillar. And while Barbara and I are versed in like the overview and the lifestyle of it all, we will provide you those expert teachers to come in and guide you within their expertise. So it's been such a beautiful thing to see it unfold and be able to highlight so many of the incredible women leaders that we're surrounded with. And I'm so excited to bring Danielle and Nicole and really just talk about all things nutrition and why it's bio individual to each one of us. So I am complete for now. Barbie, do you want to open up with your nutrition story?
Yes. Thank you, Megan. All right, ladies. So I want you to type in the chat, so if you can, whether you're on your desktop or your phone, see if you can find the chat. And I'm gonna ask, tell me I'm sorry if you hear that. Girls, I'm at a banging party right now. I just finished. This is why I look like this. I just finished a DJ set. And I'm on fire right now. There's 200 something people over on the other side of here, but then I have a highway here. So if it gets really loud, I'm sorry, that's what's happening. So type in the chat, what are primary foods? And then what do you think are secondary foods? So if you can just type in whatever shows up for you, like tell me what the primary foods are and then what the secondary foods are. And then type it in the chat or unmute yourself if you can't find your chat. Primary fruits and veggies. What else we got, girls? You can unmute and let me know. Foods for fuel, for the primary, Cynthia. What else we got? Secondary fats. Okay. What else we got? All right. All right. I had a guy tell me once, I asked him the thing, and he's like, well, your primary ones would be like your burgers, and the secondary would be like the fries. And I'm like, that's great. I love that. I never heard that one before. And so the primary foods, and this is a concept that we learned, proteins, fats, and carbs. Primaries are soul nourishing. Ooh, I like that, Kiki. Not edible. Yes, that's exactly where I'm going. This concept completely kind of shifted my look on like how I look at nutrition. And we learned this again in Institute for Integrative Nutrition, the same nutrition school Megan and I went to. And so the idea that the primary foods are not edible, but just like we get nutrition from the foods that we eat, or right, we could be toxic for us, and that's so good, right? In the same way, non-edible things in our lives are take primary focus, and then our foods that we actually eat take secondary focus. And those things are, Megan, if you can help me put it in the chat, our relationships, our career, spirituality, and our physical activity. Okay. And so think of those four things like relationships. We have relationships from our familial friendships, co-working relationships, and our intimate relationships. Think of your career, right? We go to work 8, 10 hours a day, maybe more, less. Spirituality is that connection, feeling connected, feeling this sense of trust in the world, that the universe has got your back. And our physical activity, the way that we work out or the way that we don't work out. And so this idea that these primary foods either feed us and give us this nutrition and make us feel full, or they do the opposite, much like the edible food that either we're eating for energy, we're eating to balance hormones, we're eating for those fats and those proteins, right, which are the building blocks of our physical body. Or in the same way, food can also be toxic and not make us feel good. And so in the same way, our relationships could be really nourishing or it could be toxic. And so we look at these things. We actually made each of those a pillar in our program. So we look at relationships. We look at career, which we've already done in the past months. We look at our physical activity, which is next in July, and spirituality, which we have later on in the year. And so these are things that are feeding us on a daily basis. Ladies, I shared with you in a place that I work at, which is a rehabilitation center with a group that are there because of eating disorders. And when I told them this, they were in shock. They all were quiet. They're like, that makes so much sense. That makes so much sense why I have an eating disorder. And it was like mind blown. And they've been there for like, I don't know how long, doing all kinds of things that they never thought of this. You guys, if we're not happy in our relationships, we hate our work, we hate what we do, we have absolutely no physical activity, or it's a physical activity that's actually too much for us. Think of somebody who's like always maybe on the go, really, really stressed out. And then at the end of the day, they go to a spin class or they go to a, boot camp class, and then their nervous system is high on all the time. When do they get to rest? And so that's when we start to look at, okay, what kind of physical activity do I need in my life right now? And so when we get into that, we get into all these different things that we can do with our bodies. For the longest, all I did was yoga, and after a while, that wasn't feeding me anymore. And so I started adding different things. And so when we talk about nutrition, we talk about this fourth thing, this primary foods, and we're also going to talk about, of course, the foods that we eat, and we get a little bit into that later on, and our friends here that we've invited are going to tell you a little bit about that too. I see that the light is getting really, really dark here, so we'll see how that's going to go when it gets real dark. So that's it, ladies. When we're talking about nutrition, we're talking about those things. I've been on a journey of being vegetarian 14 years. 3 of those years I was vegan, to now pretty much I eat everything. I'm back to eating animal protein and fats, and I feel the best that I felt. And that's because now currently where I'm at right now, I'm about to turn 39. I'm eating for hormone balance. That's my thing. Earlier I was eating, I went vegetarian because it was like for the animals. I got grossed out by the meat industry and all that. Had a vegetarian boyfriend, but through the years and as my hormones changed and as I learned more, then I started inviting in this different kinds of animal protein that I hadn't had for many years, and then my hormones started balancing out. And so we have our two friends are so knowledgeable in what they do. They have opposing views on nutrition, and it's okay. That's what we learned in our school. We learned that all these different dietary theories, there's not one right for anyone. And so as you listen to us speak and you're like, oh, that I connect with that. I connect with that. What we do in our program is we teach you all this, and then you get to choose. You get to try all these different things and see how you feel. Okay. There's not one diet that fits everybody, and you got to figure that out for yourself by trying it out. So that is my message to you. I think I'm complete with that.
Thank you so much for sharing. I had just took a little trip down memory lane through my diet and nutrition experience, and I wrote a post about it talking about this class tonight. And so, I remember like growing up, we would eat healthy meals. My mom would do like the protein, the starch, the veg. We had fruits and vegetables, but we had a lot of processed foods and snacks and junk. And it was like, then it evolved to like in high school, I was eating a lot of like fast foods and alcohol. And going into college, I remember freshman year, my dad took me into like bulk Sam's Club or whatever, and I got like Laffy Taffies and candy for my dorm room, right? And so I started working out like at 18. I won a free gym membership. I was active and did cheerleading and basketball my whole life, so I was super active, and like food didn't really affect me on like the physical level. And then later on, as I was getting, out of all of those sports, started working out, and I had a friend over and I'm like, do you want some Laffy Taffy? And she's like, no, has too many calories. I'm like, what do you mean? Look, it has zero fat. And I like didn't know what calories were. And so I learned about calories, and I started learning about nutrition, and all of this sugar free meant it was pumped with other things. And I started getting into dieting, and my first diets were the zone diet and the Mediterranean diet. And then that led me into, when I became a personal trainer, I got into fitness competitions. And that's where like not so balanced relationship with food came about, where I would diet for 12 weeks at a time, these restrictive diets, and, you know, lose all the weight for the stage, which is a temporary thing, and then like eat all the foods I had been restricting for a long time and like rebound and gain weight. And then I was like, oh shoot, I just competed. I'm doing another competition. I got to do it all over again, which was a cycle, which is bad. Like ended up being so bad for my mental state. And that's what Nicole put in the chat too, relationship with food. And I soon was like, okay, this is not sustainable. I'm quitting this. I found yoga, and moving into yoga, it was like now starting to focus. I learned about organic versus non-organic and GMO. And, I still remember Mark from Yogiza organic yoga clothing company is who kind of taught me about organic. Because I remember saying like, oh, we go to the store and it's like, organic is like another dollar or two, but conventional is this or that. So like, why does it matter? And then like, he kind of taught me about what it was. So I remember like, then I would go to the store and I remember like Mark on my shoulder being like, organic, you know? And so like, I started moving into quality of foods and going into the, you know, it was really about quality, about reading the ingredient labels, starting to learn from Danielle a lot about nutrition, about the oils that you cook with and what's healthy and what's not. And like, you know, nutrition school was 100 different dietary theories that we were encouraged to try out. And I moved into plant-based and I loved it. And I could like totally be a fruitarian and I love that too. And I feel like my body responds really well that way. And, you know, exciting to hear what Danielle has to talk about, like blood sugar balancing. And I had gotten I think from eating plant-based, I was doing it irresponsibly and not soaking my grains and nuts and seeds and legumes. And I developed some bad leaky gut and I went through a major skin eczema reactions for a couple years, having food sensitivities to grains and legumes. I went into elimination diets and gut healing for working to heal my skin from the inside out, which is a lot about gut health. I learned about optimal um, foods for digestion. And so like digestive health, it's been such a journey. I did a 200 food sensitivity test after being on elimination diets and parasite cleanses and gut cleanses. And I was able to open my diet up a lot more and started to, where I can have grains and beans now. And like, I pretty much went through a health crisis with my skin, healed myself through the inside out with food and being able to change my diet and being open to other types of food alternatives. And it's just been trial and error and one thing leading to the next, learning from so and so, trying it in my body. And so that's what you'll be experiencing too, because in our nutrition pillar, we lead you through so much. Like Barbara said, you can go either way with it. And then tonight we're going to hear all the ways. And I am complete for now, as I can't wait to hear from our guests and leave some time for questions. So thank you so much. I'm going to pass the mic to Danielle to have her introduce herself. I just love to hear her talk about nutrition on all levels. She has a podcast. You have to listen to it. So thank you so much, Danny, for joining.
Hey, thanks so much for having me, Megan and Barbie. So I am very wordy and I'm long-winded, and I'm going to try to keep this short and concise, but I wanted to share a little bit about my story and then give just a quick lesson. Because there's certain takeaways that I have from my story that I just want to spread to the world and help them understand. So I'm going to share my screen with you, and I'm going to open up a presentation that I did just to help keep me a little bit more on track. Hold on, I got to move some things around. Give me a second here. Okay. Okay, so my name is Danny. I am a functional nutritional therapy practitioner. So that's a long, fancy way of saying that I'm a holistic nutritionist, and I don't diagnose or treat anything, but I help the body. I help find what imbalances there are, what deficiencies there are in the body, and we help the body come back into alignment and balance. And we recognize that if you cut your hand will just immediately start healing. And the same thing's happening in the body all the time. So a lot of us can be in this spot with our health where we're really struggling and we think that our body is rebelling against us. And that was me. I was like, my body hates me. I'm doing all these things. I'm doing everything right. And I'm like, my body just hates me. And it's like, no, your body loves you and is trying to heal really hard. So it's about opening up perhaps to a different sort of paradigm and opening up and looking like, well, what's not working? And sometimes we can be in a certain space and we could be doing a certain diet and we need to sort of open that up because our answers might not be found within that paradigm. So a little bit about me. I was sicker than the average kid. I had tons of colds and eczema and strep throat and ear infections. So that meant tons of rounds of antibiotics. I got my tonsils removed. And then right after that, I not surprisingly, I got allergies and asthma and all these chronic sinus infections. Your tonsils are part of your immune system. So my immune system kind of went haywire. And I went to college and I was eating garbage. So I ate the very, very standard American diet. Processed carbs, the sweet ones were my thing. So like cereal, breakfast foods, French toast, pancakes, that was like my jam. Yeah. And then my issues just kept getting worse. I had candida. I was on all these prescriptions. I was on multiple prescription medications and 2 inhalers. And I was allergic to so many things. And I lived in Miami at the time, and I was actually allergic to palm trees. I was like, this is not even fair. So because I was allergic to so many things, I was getting allergy shots. So I would become less sensitive to things. And they needed to give me, well, at first it was 3 shots, and then I became allergic to more things. So then it was 5 shots. So I was giving myself 5 shots in the stomach every other day because I was, I don't want to get too far into it, but it was a nightmare. So then I found a paleo diet, which is just real food. It cuts out the processed stuff. It cuts out foods that have a lot of anti-nutrients. So things like grains and legumes. And um, I just almost effortlessly started healing. And so I reversed every single one of those chronic health conditions that I said. I got off all my medications, and I was just sold that this was so amazing. And it really made me look into food as medicine. And then I had a really stressful year in 2013. And then all of a sudden my hormones just went awry. It was like, welcome to the world of female hormones. And I was like, I don't want to be here. And so I started gaining weight. I had worse acne than when I was a teenager. I lost my period. I was tired all the time. I was like, what the heck is going on? Like, I'm eating the exact same thing that just healed me. And now I'm eating it and I'm not doing anything different and it's not working. Like, what the heck is happening? So as with anyone, I just tried to paleo harder. I'm like, the answer is this. So I'm just going to do it better. And so I ended up getting diagnosed with something called polycystic ovarian syndrome, or PCOS, and adrenal fatigue. And I just could not figure out how to heal myself. So I was listening to all these podcasts. I went to nutrition school. And finally, I realized I actually heard a podcast where someone said that PCOS is the diabetes of the ovaries. And I was driving and I almost ran my car off 95. Like, I was like, what do you mean diabetes? Like, what is happening? So I was like, diabetes was something that I never looked into. I didn't know anything about it. I would see it in the nutrition books and be like, let's skip over the blood sugar section because I don't have diabetes. So it's just complicated to understand. So I'm like, I don't need to know this. I'm fine. Right. So all of a sudden I had to dive into this world of blood sugar. And I was like, I have no idea what this stuff is. This is really complex. And little did I know that, like, at the root of the PCOS was really all these blood sugar issues that I didn't even know I had. So insulin resistance is the root cause of PCOS. And so with insulin resistance, there's blood sugar dysregulation. So this is not accurate. Like, it's not super accurate. It's just like all hormones affect each other, but this is the best way I can kind of put it together. So Barbie, you were talking about hormone health. And so when I had PCOS, that's when my testosterone was high, my estrogen was high, my progesterone was low. And I kept trying to affect these sex hormones and I was getting nowhere. I felt like Austin Powers, when he was like stuck in that hallway going back and forth. Maybe that's too old. But anyway, I was just super stuck. So finally, when I got my insulin under control, and when we think about insulin and cortisol, we think blood sugar and our adrenal glands, everything started changing for me. And of course, oxytocin is it's like the anti-stress hormone. So like if we pet a cat or get a hug from a friend, excuse me, that's when we get oxytocin release, massage, touch, and that helps us to actually blunt the effects of cortisol, which is amazing. So if you're stressed out, make your significant other give you a massage and say it's for science, it's for hormones. And then our circadian rhythm is super important. If you're not sleeping, your hormones are going to be really dysregulated and imbalanced. It's going to affect your insulin levels even that very next day. And so we can see that we need to fix these things on the bottom first. Excuse me. So I'm going to skip through because I don't want to I don't want to take too much more time, but I do want to share maybe a little lesson about blood sugar. So diabetes doesn't happen overnight, and you're probably like, I'm not diabetic, this doesn't concern me. But I wanted to tell you a little bit more about blood sugar dysregulation, because diabetes doesn't happen overnight. It takes years and decades to develop, but it is such an epidemic in our country that like over 85% of 88% of adults are estimated to have some sort of metabolic disorder or like metabolic issue. And that means that their blood sugar and insulin is not working right. So basically, we have two fuels. We have fat and glucose or sugar. And so we're born in a state where we can burn both for fuel. That's having metabolic flexibility. That's what we want. That's the name of the game. But over time, we eat such high carb diets because it's not our fault, but that's the food that they're feeding us, right? That's the food on the commercials. That's what they tell us to eat your healthy whole grains, like eat all these, but, and make sure you snack, like eat 6 times a day, like constantly eating, constantly spiking your blood sugar is going to put you in a state where your body no longer is able to access the fat for fuel, because what's happening is that your insulin levels are going up, and insulin is a fat storage hormone. It tells the body store fat, store fat. So you can't burn fat and store fat at the same time. So eating high carbs, snacking all the time, being super stressed out, which raises your blood sugar, all these things put us in this state where we're unable to access our own body fat as fuel. And that's a big problem. And that's what's going to cause this blood sugar dysregulation. So I do not know why I need to clear my throat. Hang on one second. Okay, so what? Sorry, I spilled water on my computer earlier, and it's like clicking all the time now. So normal blood sugar, we feel normal. Then we get to blood sugar dysregulation. Some people might have this thing where their blood sugar keeps crashing. That was me. And then the blood sugar will get bad enough that the doctor will say, oh, you now have pre-diabetes or you have type 2 diabetes. But all the while, there's insulin resistance at the root of this getting worse. So I wanted to explain, this is the main thing that I wanted to share, is that what does blood sugar dysregulation feel like? Because most of us probably are not anywhere near type 2 diabetes, or maybe we are. It's getting more and more common, but there's so many things that happened before then that I didn't know that I wish I knew. And that's what I want to share with y'all. So in between meals, if you're someone who like can't go that long between meals, or if you have to like miss a meal for some reason, or maybe even when you wake up in the morning after not eating all night, you might experience some of these symptoms if you have some level of blood sugar dysregulation. I do want to say that it looks different for everybody, and that the worse it gets, just the more symptoms you have, and the worse and more pronounced the symptoms are. So you get shaky, lightheaded, or dizzy, feeling irritable or anxious, lots of mood stuff, because your brain is sensing like, hey, we don't have any freaking fuel. Like, you better feed me right now. So it's going to make you like irritable and like that hangry feeling. You have difficulty concentrating or brain fog. Again, your brain's not getting energy, feeling tired, weak, or lethargic, feeling nauseous, getting the sweats, feeling your heart pounding. A lot of people wake up in the middle of the night with a pounding heart and they think, oh, I'm having an anxiety attack. And it's not an anxiety attack. It's your blood sugar crashing and your adrenals stepping in an emergency, pumping out all that epinephrine, which is adrenaline, to get your blood sugar up in an emergency. And that causes so many issues. It causes your heart to pound, and you think you're having an anxiety attack, and that's exactly what it feels like. And then, like I mentioned, getting hangry, having this very intense and urgent hunger. I'm sure when we think about hangry, like someone might be coming to mind. Like I remember certain people in my life who it's like, oh, you don't want to be around them when they're hungry, right? That's blood sugar dysregulation. And people who have sugar, carb, and starch cravings, some people are like, oh no, I don't crave carbs. I crave like pretzels and chips. I'm like, honey, that's not a sugar craving, but it's sugar. As soon as it gets broken down by your salivary enzymes, it turns immediately into glucose. And then, like I mentioned, the hunger feels urgent. All of these things are symptoms of blood sugar going low, but sometimes they could be blood sugar going high as well. I forgot to actually put headaches. That's a really common one. Headaches and even migraines as things get worse. So some people like me, I didn't have that many blood sugar issues. I just had these behaviors that actually prevented them. So I was the person who would just graze all the time. Like I just intuitively like go in the kitchen, just put a few, grab a handful of almonds or a handful of blueberries or something, have a little granola bar. I'd be the person who didn't leave the house without a granola bar in my purse. I used to eat before I went out to eat. And I'm like, I don't know why I can't stop doing this. Like, what is this about? It was that I couldn't handle the thought of even being hungry, because hunger to me was a blood sugar crash. It wasn't just normal hunger. And so, like I said, snacking and grazing between meals, you might be someone who depends on caffeine and sugar to kind of power you through your day. You might gravitate towards carbs and sweets and starches. And then you are a person who may identify like, I'm just a person who needs carbs to function, because when we go off of them and and we can't burn body fat for fuel, our body's like, oh my gosh, this is really bad. And it doesn't have that ability yet. So it's going to make you think that you need carbs because your blood sugar is dropping and that's your only fuel source at that time. And then there's also like dopamine pathways and all these things involved, like addictive type pathways when it comes to sugar. So you might think that that's sort of what you need. So this will all lead to issues like you can't lose weight no matter how hard you try. That was me. Right when I met Megan, actually, I was going through this really badly. Energy crashes before or after eating, mood swings, fasting is difficult, if not impossible, having trouble falling asleep or staying asleep, having acne, having a slow metabolism, weight gain, weight loss, resistance, migraines, hormone imbalances, etc. And so as time goes on, it's going to start to affect more and more body symptoms. And in the later stages, you'll experience any of the following of these and even more. And you might be thinking like, wow, like blood sugar stuff, it's very broad, right? Like it's not like we can be like, it's just stomach aches and stomach pain and cramping. Like it's not located in one area of the body. And that's because blood sugar affects every cell in our body. Every single cell has insulin receptors. Every cell can be powered by glucose. And so it's really like when you think about it, every single system of the body can be affected. So all those mental, emotional, brain things that I talked about, like Alzheimer's is now being called type 3 diabetes. So this is really, really a big issue. It happens with issues with your skin and your blood vessels and your liver and your gut. It imbalances your gut. It affects your eyes and your mouth. Like literally, you could just go organ by organ. I think that's like the next slide. Like organ by organ, you're going to have issues. So, okay. How much I'm gonna end here. I was gonna give you some tips for helping, but I don't want to take up too much time. So yeah, that's basically, those are some signs, and I
Give
hope
us
that
the
was
tips.
helpful.
Give us the tips.
Oh yeah.
Give us the tips.
Okay. All right. I'll go fast through it. But you can follow me on Instagram, and I have a podcast called Unlock the Sugar Shackles. So if you want to learn a little bit more about this, I'm happy to help. So these are just some very, very basic tips on how to help your blood sugar a little bit. And so one really great tip is apple cider vinegar before your meals. Not only does it help to increase stomach acid, which is super important, it also helps to reduce the glucose spike from a meal due to the acetic acid in it. So any type of vinegar is good. Lemon juice wouldn't work for this, but lemon juice would increase stomach acid. But this is not to say like, oh, I'm just going to go out and have an all-out binge because I can just have apple cider vinegar. It doesn't erase stuff. So, but it is helpful for not creating such a big spike, which is great. And then eating carbs before a workout and then working them off, like you would use up the glucose. But of course, if you're eating something like cake, it's going to have all those anti-nutrients and bad oils and things like that. You can't work those off, but you can use up the glucose that you're eating as fuel. But of course, I do recommend to, like, if you're working on blood sugar, don't go for the cake. Even working out and then eating afterwards. Sorry, that was eat and then work out. This is work out and then eat. You are much more insulin sensitive after a meal because you've sort of burned off a lot of the stored glycogen, which is stored sugar in the muscles. And then it just goes right back in there, and it's no problem. It kind of refreshes that. So that would be a good time to eat something that's has some more carbs in it. This is fascinating to me. So the order in which you eat your food can be really, really helpful for your blood sugar. So this person had potato and then beef, and we got this spike. They mixed it. So this is like if you think about mixing something with rice or whatever, and then having the meat first and after had much less of a spike. So even having some greens before your meal, because that has fiber in it, the fiber will slow the absorption. So having starting with a salad, put some apple cider vinegar on there for that benefit, and then having your meats and fats, and then saving the carbs for last is like such an amazing way to eat your meals. Like some people who are just kind of like people starting from scratch, maybe standard American diet, like people lose weight by doing this. It's pretty crazy. The other thing is, and I'm going to make a shirt that says this, like just say no to naked carbs. Having carbs by themselves, I call them naked carbs, is just going to give you a really big spike and then can crash you later. So having some protein, fats, and veggies first can really help to slow the absorption of the glucose and blunt that spike so you don't have such a spike. And these spikes are really what the problem is. And this is taken from a continuous blood glucose monitor. So if you've ever seen someone with like a little white circle on the back of their arm that's measuring their glucose at all times, that's what these come from. Another thing is choosing whole food carbohydrates over processed ones. Juicing is a process, dried fruit is a process, a rice cake is processed rice, right? All having whole food carbohydrates, I think that's something that we can all agree on, is a better choice than things that are processed because they will spike you much more. Starting your day with a savory breakfast is also an amazing way to start the day, as opposed to starting on a blood sugar roller coaster. People are like so obsessed with smoothies and things, and smoothies, unless they're like 95% vegetables, they're probably going to spike you in some sense. And so, I mean, you can definitely make a non-spiking smoothie, but starting your day with a savory breakfast. And I find for my clients with weight loss issues, chewing food at breakfast can actually really help with satiety and feeling full. And you go a lot longer and you don't need that mid-morning snack because you're not crashing. And again, that's going to help your blood sugar levels. This one I love because it's like, don't worry about the brown or the white. Like this is not really doing much for you. There's more anti-nutrients in the brand. There are a few more nutrients, but there's also more anti-nutrients. So it's really not doing you many favors. It's not really helping to slow the spike. And this is something I'm like, really, it's really important to see. This is supposed to be some like keto treat, something like all these things that are marketed like, oh, it might not be that way. So this is just to say that these smart sweets are just as bad as a regular old chocolate chip cookie for your blood sugar. Bread is still a processed carbohydrate. A lot of us are very connected and attached to bread, but it's something that if you have blood sugar issues, you might do really well with taking out bread. So I just wanted to share that it's not a health food as it claims. So those are the ones that I'll share, and I will pass the mic now. So thank you. I hope those were helpful.
Amazing. Amazing. Thank you, Danny. That is incredible. Ladies, follow her on Instagram. She's sharing so much. And if this is something that you relate to, make sure that you connect with her, listen to her podcast. You just gave so much. I mean, just if we start to apply that one by one, and I'm with you. PFFs, I call them PFFs. Protein, fat, fiber breakfast completely changed everything. I was a juice smoothie girl. Protein shake it, go, because I was teaching since 7 a.m. in the morning, so a shake was great. 4 hours no eating, and then whatever, and then my hormones, that's when they started declining, when I went like that and so then I'm like eating salmon and avocado and a salad for like 7 in the morning. I'm like cooking pork chops, and like Brian's like, what got in you?
Yes.
You are crazy. And then my sex life changed, like everything started upgrading. So
Love
But
it.
again, I did great. I did great when I did with my vegetarianism and my stuff. I did good. Until then, I didn't. So
Right. And then
it's
you need
okay.
to
And
shift,
it
right? Yeah.
exactly, you gotta,
Mhm.
that's the intuition, and then listening to your body and adapting as it changes.
Awesome.
Is it my turn? Hi, everybody. Is it my turn to speak now? Hi. So my name is Nicole Rodriguez. I'm born here in Miami. My parents, I grew up in a typical American, standard American diet. My parents are Cuban. So very lots of rice, everyday rice on the table, a piece of meat. There was vegetables, but we did grow up with like the cereal with milk. We probably went through like a gallon of milk, just typical cookies. We always did have fruits around. So I would say it was balanced. My mom did always cook our meals. So I can't shame her for that, but they did do their best. And so I knew at a young age that I wanted to be in the medical field, very young age. I was probably 9 or maybe younger. And so I was always like in high school, like opting out like electives for, anatomy, physiology. So I knew like that was my path. And then what's funny is that, so my best friend who I grew up with, we met around 11 years old, and I wouldn't call myself fat, but when I met her, she's like running around the neighborhood, meeting me up, like calling me to come over to her pool. And she's like ripped, like super lean and ripped. And I'm just like, I'm just like a comfort eater. So I used to be at least. And so I remember meeting her and I'm like, I want to look like this, So when I did have like wanting to help people in the medical field as like my true like North Node kind of passion. But there was like a period in my life that I wanted to learn for myself and how to like manage my weight. I was never like overweight. I can never say that because somebody would probably be like, girl, don't even say that. But I did want to, look comfortable in a bikini and all this stuff. And then I remember getting into like high school, and I had one boyfriend, and he would drink Coke with like every meal and not gain an ounce. And I just had a sip of Coke because luckily I never liked soda, and my mom never had it in the house. And so I remember like gaining weight, like maybe not a lot of weight, but like maybe 5 pounds within a short window of time. And I was just like, oh, I can't, so that's when I started associating food, like the effect of food and your diet. And so I remember I was probably like 18 years old and doing like drinking Slim Fast as like a meal replacement, which is like now in retrospect, I'm like, it's horrible. I don't know how my mom didn't notice that. But, once I got a car, I started to connect the dots and I started to buy my own food, make salads for myself. I, started working out. I continued like my whole path on like medical field. So I was doing all my prerequisites for college. We're all in like pre-med. I did take a break in school. I was having difficulties, oddly, because I love math, but for some reason I could not pass calculus. I don't know if I was just drained out, just burned out with school, but I couldn't pass calculus. Maybe it was a teacher speaking some other, like having a heavy accent. But so I did take a break from school, and then somehow, when I graduated high school, this is a little bit of a side note that pairs up with my story. I graduated high school with actually a cosmetology license, which was like kind of a blessing in disguise because I've never really had a boss. So when I was going to school, I was able to have my own clients and do hair and make my own like hours and my own rates and everything. So I had that background. So I worked a lot of weddings on the weekends, and I don't know if anybody of you, if you're from Miami, if you've ever been to the Coconut Grove Farmers Market. I remember working a wedding and I stopped there afterwards and checked it out. And I remember eating like just like a big portion of like, I was just starving from like working all day, like basically intermittent fasting or whatever. And I was like, oh, I'm dying to eat something. So whatever, I just found this, I always forget her name, the Jamaican lady that does like all this raw vegan food. So I just remember eating like all this like raw vegan food. And one of the main dishes that she makes is like this raw plantains. And me growing up as a Cuban, like I was raised to believe and told that you can't eat plantains raw. So when I saw this and I tried it, and on top of that, I ate like this huge portion, but I still felt like satisfied but energized. I didn't feel like heavy like other foods would make me feel. I like really started to connect the dots. And not that long after that, I don't know how, I didn't even know dietetics and nutrition was a degree. And somehow it just came into my life, and I just transferred all my like pre-med credits over to dietetics and nutrition, and I graduated from Kaiser University. And so not to get your diploma, but to get your licensure, you have to do interning in like hospitals and nursing homes and things like that. So it was really eye-opening for me, to see like the consequences of food and our diet and how pharmaceuticals really don't help us at all. They only, are a little band-aid to alleviate some pain. And sure, obviously nobody wants to feel bad, because if you don't feel good, you can't get up and make yourself breakfast or any of the things. So I like, there's a purpose for pharmaceuticals, but it's gotten way out of control. And it just exacerbates the problems because you're basically ignoring it, and it gets worse and worse. But also when I was in school, I just really wanted to know how the food got to our plate, basically. So in the middle of like my whole schooling, I just really went in deep into where literally how did everything get to my plate, like the processing, like of sugars, of processed foods, of the animals and all those things. And I just started connecting the dots. Even like they were talking about the primary foods, like energetically and spiritually, I just didn't resonate. I was like, how can, like, it's become like no longer survival food. I like to look at animal foods as more of a survival, that our body has the ability to, it's very, what's the word? It's very like resilient. It can adapt to, or like if you're dehydrated, your body will literally have hormones, and it'll switch your thirst mechanism to adapt for the lack of water. So our body is very resilient in that sense, thank God, because we wouldn't be here as a society, as a human race, if it wasn't able to, and to live in such a variety of climates. But I just started realizing that the way we live in our current culture now, there's really no need, unless you're like going hunting or fishing or anything like that. If I couldn't personally kill an animal, that's how I went through like a plant-based diet, on top of the fact that it made me just feel so much better. And also you're like just getting straight to the source of the nutrients. I feel like animals kind of like are like a filter, and they kind of like, you're not getting the full benefits of all the plants. So I kind of just started experimenting it on my own in my middle of my schooling, and it totally just resonated with me and made me feel so much more like alive and energized. And then I just started naturally, all these documentaries started coming out, like Forks Over Knives, and I started connecting with all these other doctors. And there's also these two diabetic guys who are, their IG is called Mastering Diabetics. There's just a lot of people in the community, and I started just resonating with like raw food, and it just made so much sense to me. Like, and there's obviously scientific evidence that the more you cook your foods, you denature all the vitamins and minerals. So what I feel like we have as society is a nutritional deficiency, because we're eating processed foods. We're eating like through secondhand sources, like through the animals. We're eating way too much, in my opinion, too many animal sources. It shouldn't be its volume. And the quality of the food, obviously, even if you're eating fruits of a raw vegan diet, even like that in itself, the quality of an apple has diminished from what a quality of an apple used to be, unless you have like your own mango tree or your own apple tree. It's never going to be what it used to be, because of the way we have overly farmed, the way we commercialize the fruit and vegetable industry. So adding more to like the fire, basically, of why I'm so like OCD and crazy about eating like as much of a high, I like to call it like a high, basically like a superfood or high nutrient dense food diet. And also, so another thing that I have connected the dots with is, and what are man-made problems that we have created with our health issues, is that from all this processed food that are like basically negative in nutrition, they have to like fortify these foods. Like if you have to fortify food, it means it doesn't have any nutrients. And the overconsumption of animals, there's a lot of studies that have proven that within like 30 minutes of consuming animals, because it's not your proteins, or it's a foreign protein, it causes within 30 minutes of consumption, it causes like an inflammation response, and it takes about like 4 hours to subside. And so if you're doing this breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and maybe snacks in between, it causes like an inflammatory response. And so it's like a constant like stress on the body is one factor. What was the other factor? So, and I've seen this with patients. I've done this with my own grandmother who's 90 years old and who was diabetic, and we have reversed it through like a plant-based diet. She's not even like physically active anymore. It's pretty powerful what a plant-based diet can do. So what I was gonna say also is that, so this inflammatory response that happens in the body. So different foods have different, what causes like part of the inflammation, not only that it's a foreign protein, because kind of think of like your body, when you get like a transplant from somebody, your body doesn't recognize that, like say a kidney transplant from somebody else, and they give you like steroids to subside the inflammation until your body gets accustomed to that. But in addition to that inflammatory response, different foods have different, what I call like, kind of like how cars, like you have electric cars and we have like, you know, still gasoline burning fuel cars, where so some foods have more of a residual waste in the body and where others have less. So, and I've tested it, again, I've tested this out of myself. I've tested it, I've done research on this. There's a lot of doctors have done studies on this. I can share books and things like that if you want. I'm even creating like a program and I've helped a lot of people like reduce inflammation, reverse diabetes, lower the cholesterol, all these things. So with the residual thing, so some foods, like I said, some foods create more residual residue. So think of like your pipes in your home kind of thing. And so basically your blood is your fuel that goes in to feed your cells versus your lymphatic system, which is very neglected. I know there's a lot, it's coming up, thank God, but that's becoming more of a topic these days, but it's a very neglected aspect of the body. And so your lymphatic system is basically your sewer system. So if you have a septic tank in your home, not like you're not hooked up to like the main lines of like your city, if your sewer system is backed up, your septic tank is going to back up into your home, which is your physical body. So a lot of people are actually feeling like lymphatic constipation, and just like you would have constipation in your digestive tract, the same thing is basically happening in your lymphatic system, because your cells, just like you were alive and you have to consume food and drink water and eliminate waste, anything that is alive needs to breathe oxygen, needs water to hydrate it and to cleanse itself, and then anything again that's alive eliminates waste. And so that's why I'm saying like some foods have a higher residual like a residual like waste, and some have less. So the less that you have, the less waste is going to be built up by your body, and then coupled with like less inflammation in the body. So if your body's constantly inflamed, it's on top of it, if it's constantly inflamed, you're not only going to need the nutrients that you need on a daily basis to keep your body and your brain, your heart, all your organs functioning properly, you're going to need more nutrition on top of that to fix the inflammation that you cause from whether it's drinking, whether it's the diet, or even stress. It could be hormonal, like anxiety can cause inflammation. There's a lot of things that cause inflammation. It can be outside sources. That's why we use doTERRA oils and we don't use like, you know, perfumes anymore. You know, it becomes like a stepping stone, everything you start piling on to your knowledge. So I'm not like trying to tell everybody like go raw vegan or anything like that, but you do connect the dots and you start to feel better. And so I've just realized like, okay, it's not worth it for me to consume that food because it makes me slow, it slows me down, or it gives me brain fog, or my digestion, or my skin, or my weight. I don't even have to think about my weight anymore. I used to actually have to get because from the toxic load, I would have to get like prescription grade deodorant. But now I just make my own deodorant with like doTERRA oils and my coconut oil and a little baking soda or whatever. I took Accutane when I was younger for my skin. So that was one thing that I'm still like healing the layers of all like the antibiotics I used to use, all like the milks and cheeses I used to eat. So it's definitely a cleaning process that your body's going through. There's a lot of layers, but it can be done. And I've seen it with multiple people, and I feel way stronger than I ever have before. I used to do ballet when I was younger. Now my yoga is like my ballet. And like my arabesque is like higher than what it used to be when I was younger. And so it's so crazy how like age is really nothing, or your genetics is really nothing. It's really your what you're feeding your body every day. And so why I feel like raw vegan diet is so like such a more like, at least if you can keep at least 75-80% of your diet, why I feel like it's more ideal for like the general population, especially if you're trying to reverse any like inflammation or any health issues, because majority of them are, I would say 99% of them are man-made induced, out of laziness, out of lack of education, out of, you know, a bunch of things that we've been convinced that we need or we should be consuming them. So if you can consume at least 70-80% of a raw plant-based diet, why I recommend this is because if you think about the earth and about our body, we are like 70% water. And if you look at the majority of fruits and vegetables, they are about 70% water. They're not as sugar coated. There's not as much sugar as we've been taught to believe. The sugars in them are mostly fructose, which don't even need insulin to get into the muscles and the brain. So they're like, they're like, there is some of the glucose in there, but it's not just only glucose. But it's mostly water, which helps clean out your body. Fruits and vegetables, especially fruits, they have like the most antioxidants, the most vitamins and minerals. And so you won't even need to eat as much food because your body, it's quality versus quantity. And your body, you'll like eliminate cravings. You're gonna be hydrating your body. A lot of us are anti-aging actually very prematurely, and a lot of cancers that shouldn't even be happening because we're pretty much just dehydrated and causing a lot of like acidity in the body. And then if anybody has a Kangen water machine here, knows about acidity and alkalinity, and that's a great way to manage that balance. But the diet is you still have to eat. You can't just be drinking water all day long anyways, regardless. But so that's why I'm like, so like, I just, especially if you're just trying to at least correct an issue, and then you can find the balance in your life. Like if you still want to socialize and eat your barbecue steaks or whatever, but if you're trying to heal something, I'm like all about like the faster, if you really want to heal, the fastest way, in my opinion, and what I've seen work for many of my clients, is like a raw vegan diet. And again, like I said, once you find where your comfort level is, then you can start introducing, go to a barbecue and see how you feel, any other foods that you indulge in, and then you'll have a clean slate to see what foods affect you, and you can determine for yourself if it's worth it to consume that food or not, basically. But that pretty much sums it up. So yeah, and I drink a smoothie every morning. A big one.
Thank you, Nicole.
Thank you.
And that, for me, this lighting is horrible, but you can hear me just fine. Thank you. What it comes down to me, and what I hear you both saying in different ways: eat whole foods.
Yeah,
Eat
of course.
foods that are in its whole form. Let's reduce as much as we can the process. And I think I came up with this because I haven't read it anywhere else, but I say, to sum it up in one sentence: eat that which has been touched by the sun. So sit with that for a moment and think of what has been touched by the sun. Eat that which has been touched by the sun. And if you think about it, the sun is it's the energy that the plants need to grow, the energy that the animals need, right? And the animals are eating the plants. And so hopefully, if we are eating animals, then did that animal eat the plant that was touched by the sun? Was that animal out in the sun taking in that energy, taking in that? And so if we start to think about that, it comes back to whole foods that are only one ingredient: meat, chicken, one, strawberry, one ingredient, right? A banana, one ingredient. A Fruit Loop, many ingredients, right? So you get the thing. Everybody's going to have a different way. It's so confusing out there, you guys. One's telling you keto, the other one's telling you paleo, the other one's telling you raw food. They're all great. That might not be all for you, but you got to find out which is the one for you. What resonates with me? And with that, you get really curious. You get you start to explore, and you say, you know what, for this month or this week, I'm going to try the paleo. This one, I'm going to try to go raw vegan and see what happens. And so one of the things, I run a book club, for those of you who don't know, and we're reading Integrative Nutrition this month. So we started last night. You can still join us, get the book. All the details for that's in the link tree in my Instagram. But that's the book that the Joshua Rosenthal wrote, and the book that we had to read for our school. And in there, you start to learn so much about, like what I told you, primary, secondary foods, politics of food. Why is processed food so cheap, and you start to understand and learn about subsidies and all that stuff, and it's just a whole thing. And you learn about that one bio individuality, like we're all different. We raw might be great for someone, and it might be the death of the other one, and vice versa. And so listen to your own intuition, listen to other people, and learn. Yes, and then follow your intuition and what works for you, and then explore that. And maybe you explore and you're like, that didn't sit well with me. All right, then there's so many other things that you can explore too and take out. And so in the what did I want to say about the book club? Anyhow, there's a book club. We start to learn about all these different things. Oh yeah, because they have the breakfast experiment. I think it's the first or second chapter, and you experiment breakfast for 5 days, and you have a different breakfast every day. You have a fruity one, you have a cereal, you have an oatmeal, you have like a protein fiber, like that. And then you start to feel, well, how do I feel right after I eat this food? How do I feel 2 hours after this food? And if you are not aware of how you're feeling, and you only notice the pain and this maybe once in a while, you're really not understanding how food is affecting you, or you're not maybe even aware that, hey, I get really gassy when I eat this, or I have to go to the bathroom right away when I drink this, and you think it's a normal thing because it's what you're used to. But in reality, when you really start to write down these things, which is in the book, it's what the work that we do, then you start to really get to know yourself in a deeper level. Like, all right, this food works for me, this not so much. And so that's where you tune into that self-care, self-love, tuning in, tapping into your intuition, and then you get into intuitive eating. And intuitive eating, it's like really understanding and knowing what works for you, what makes you feel high vibe, the best energy, what's balancing your hormones. And not that one's wrong, one's right. It's not about that, you guys. What is sustainable for you? What is wise for you to eat? What is wise for you to explore? Oh, thank you, Meg. You're doing that? Awesome. Yep. So that is our book club. You can still join, you guys. We meet Wednesdays at 7:45 to 8:30 p.m., just like this on Zoom. And we discuss the chapters and we help each other out. And, I support you with whatever questions you have, anything like that. I'm reading the book too. And, I love it. I started this book club as one of the things that I enjoy and wanted to hold myself accountable to reading one book a month. And we've been doing one book a month ever since. Every month is a different pillar, and it's the same pillar as our coaching program. So anyone, our members can join for free, and then anyone from the public joins for $20. And you have 4 Zoom calls, pretty much coaching calls from me, and and you have a really nice group to hold you accountable to your reading and your learning.
All right. Thank you, everyone, for showing up and learning about nutrition, learning about different ways of eating and different styles. Follow Nicole on Instagram. She shares so many recipes for smoothies and raw food. And I just love, I feel like we can always learn more ways to incorporate whole foods into our diet. So I'm just so happy we all got together. And if anyone have questions, let's stay connected. Yeah, the butcher box. Okay.
I want to thank Danny, Nicole. Thank you so much for spending this evening with us and sharing your wisdom and what has worked for you. Thank you so much for the work and everything that you're doing, putting yourself out there online. It's a lot of work, you guys. Creating this content and sharing, putting your life out there is a lot. So I commend you, girls. Thank you so much. And those of you ladies who have joined us tonight, thank you for spending an evening with us. We do this at the beginning of the month, this ZoomCast. And then we also have one later on in the month for our members, which is the mentorship call. And this is where you get to ask questions, to tell us about your wins, tell us about your challenges. And as a group, we support you with moving forward and upgrading, which is what we're all here to do. There's always room for improvement, and this is what it's all about. Let's improve all these different buckets, these pillars of our life that are supporting us in a mentally, emotionally, physically, spiritually. And so thank you so much for being a part of it. Those of you who are in our program, we love you so much. Thank you. Thank you. I am complete. Girls, there's a party waiting for me, and I'm so looking forward to get to it. And I am so like full also with all this information that you guys share. We are recording this, and so we will be sending a recording. If you didn't take notes and you're like, oh my God, what did she say again? So we'll be emailing you this, those of you in our network. We do have a network. Those of you who are not part of it, what are you waiting for? Go to healthysexygreen.com right now. It's free. And then for our coaching program, there it is. Okay, this is our healthysexygreen.com, you can join for free into the network. And then we have courses here. The book club group is going to be in here as well. And think of this like a Facebook, but just for us. Okay. There are no ads. There are no one kind of creeping up on you or anything like that. It's a place to network. So for you to meet like-minded individuals who are into this kind of way of living, into self-development, into spirituality and yoga and eating healthy and green living. And so this is what Megan and I have created, and we welcome you. So if you go to healthysexygreen.com, you'll join this free, and then if you want to join the course, go to courses, and then you'll find Integrate to Upgrade there. Thank you guys so much, or ladies, I shall say.
Thank you. Thank you. Talk
Thank
to
you
you
so much
soon.
for having me.
Thanks for coming. And Danielle, are you open to sharing your PowerPoint with us for the follow-up email?
So that's part of a very long
Yeah.
presentation.
I
So
wouldn't ask for that.
Yeah, I can share with you the link to get the blood sugar masterclass replay. If you want, it's only $25. So it's a like 2-hour presentation, kind of like diving into that. So happy to
Love
share
that.
that.
Yes,
Great.
I'll add it to the email.
Yeah, and I have a lot of those resources also for free on my Instagram page. So even just like the blood sugar spectrum and all that. So that's on there.
Okay, great. And
Thank you.
Danielle and Nicole, send us your links for your information. We'll include it in the email as well.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me.
All
Thank you,
right.
everyone.
Bye. Have a good
Bye.
night.
Thank you.